and ready for this live Q&A. Sorry, we're a couple of minutes behind right now. We're having some technical difficulties, and Dave is trying to get his audio up and running. Let's make fun of him. How you doing, Dave? You doing good?
Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you. Yeah.
You can? Oh my goodness.
I was really looking forward to making fun of you.
Well, you can still make fun of me. Everybody else does. Just because I can hear you doesn't mean you can't make fun of me.
That's true. How are you, man? We haven't even talked to each other yet. How you doing?
I'm good. I apologize for the craziness.
No,
and I between the podcast and everything, we're always switching every cord around.
I know.
Every time I do something, it's a little bit different, and I know this is going to sound absolutely ridiculous to you, but I just didn't plug. I didn't plug the board into my computer. Is that necessary? Do we have to do that?
I mean, not if you have a wireless board, but generally speaking.
Apparently, I don't. Yeah. We're usually plugged into her computer. So anyways, I apologize. Guys. But hey, everybody. Good to see that there's already some action going on. So
I know.
I apologize.
Let us know where you guys are at. Tom's in San Francisco. Awesome. Beautiful city. I'm up there all the time. And we'll have to connect, Tom, next time I'm up there. Let's do it. But let us know where you guys are at and get those questions prepped and ready to go because that is why we are here. So we're going to keep an eye on the chat over there, and we'll be taking questions kind of as they come, and I'll be taking notes on when questions come up. But while those are coming in, Dave, last time you kind of put me on the hot seat and asked me some questions about myself. So I thought maybe we could ask you some questions. So while I have a couple questions to ask you, I'm just curious if anybody else out there, Walnut Creek. All right. Oh yeah, of course. If anybody else has a question for Dave on a more personal note, I'm going to throw a couple of them out. So put it in the chat if you got something good that we need to know. Hey, Kevin, what's up? How's New York treating you? A lot of New York over there. All right.
No kidding.
Cool.
San Francisco.
I know. 3 New Yorks in a row. Look at that.
Steve Clayton. Could you do me a favor and ban him from the comments, please? Just mute him. He's apparently in Columbus, and he said, "Go Buckeyes." You're lucky this is on Jordan's YouTube channel this month, Steve. No, seriously. I have a lot of good friends that are Buckeye fans. Before I moved to Cincinnati, I didn't realize there were good Buckeye fans, but there are some good ones out there. I'm gonna give Steve the benefit of the doubt. But anyway, shoot away, Jordan. I just let you know up front that I'm a pretty transparent guy, so be careful what you ask me.
One of my life philosophies is to not ask questions I don't want to know the answers to.
Carlos says that all the time.
So yeah. Trenton, are you still having problems? Let me know. Is anybody else having problems? Trenton says that his screen's just showing waiting for Laundromat resource. Anybody else having that problem? Let me know, and I can see if there's a problem there. It seems like you guys can at least hear me. Can you guys see us okay and everything?
Well, I will tell you this, Jordan. Up in the top left-hand corner of my screen, it says host is not joined yet. I can see you. I'm wondering if they can see you.
Oh, can you guys see us?
Somebody comment in the section if you can only hear me. I don't know how they would do that if you hadn't joined, but my feed says host is not joined yet. I don't know what that means, but they must be able to hear us.
Good. Okay. Well, let me check here. While I'm checking to see if there's something going on, info says yes. So let me, okay.
Can see, Taylor Hawkins says, can see, yeah.
Okay.
If you can see and hear, then I guess we're all good. Everybody's saying all good.
Okay.
Can see and hear both. All right,
Trenton,
let's roll with it.
Trenton, maybe jump off the screen and get back on. Hear you, see you, all is good. That might be debatable if you can see me and it's good. I don't know, depending. All right, Dave. I mean, man, we need to know some information about you. So can you tell us an embarrassing story from your childhood?
People are going to absolutely love this story, by the way. So I am roughly in 5th grade. I'm riding my bike to the local pharmacy to get candy, which is kind of what we did back in the day. I'm riding down the sidewalk on the side of a fairly main road on my bike. And across the road, it's a 2-lane road. Across the road, a car is coming towards me the opposite direction. and their fairly heavy-duty metal hubcap pops off their car, rolls across the opposite lane of traffic, jumps the curb, hits me in the head, and knocks me out. Literally knocked me off my bike into the weeds and
Holy
knocked me
cow.
out cold.
Holy cow.
And I got up and I wasn't sure what had happened, but my friend told me what had happened.
Oh my
I had no
gosh.
idea. I was fine. I mean, I never had any side effects. I'm still a normal person. No, just kidding. Just debatable. I'm setting that up for you, Jordan. I'm setting it up.
Well, you know what you're setting up for me. Can I tell you what I found is the most surprising thing about this whole story?
What's that?
That cars were invented when you were in 5th grade. That's crazy.
It's hard to believe.
Yeah, I know.
For a little young buck like you, I know it's hard to believe. Yep, cars were around. Cars were around.
Kidding. Man, that is a crazy story. And
Yep.
they made those things sturdy back then. Not like
That's
now.
right.
They're not those plastic
these
things.
were back when hubcaps were not plastic, folks.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how old our audience is here,
Yeah.
but knock me out cold.
Pretty.
And I haven't told that. I've told that story quite a few times because I don't mind embarrassing myself. But every time I tell that story, people almost laugh so hard they can't breathe. And I guess it's one of the, like, you have to know me too, I guess. But yeah,
Right.
that visual. I mean, I was, probably 100 pounds or so, knocked me out cold. So yeah, pretty embarrassing.
That is pretty embarrassing. Hey, can you tell us, have you read any good books lately?
I reread the book behind me. Does that count?
Is that Good to Great?
Good to Great.
Dude, I
reread that. Yeah, I reread that on vacation a couple months or a couple weeks ago, I guess.
Yeah.
And it was just as good. I think this is actually the 3rd time I've read it. But it had been a few years, but very, very good book. If you haven't read it, Jim Collins, Good to Great. It is fantastic, guys. Fantastic. Highly recommend it.
I also highly recommend it. I just got it. Somebody said your story would be a perfect Allstate commercial.
Yeah, that's true. That's
pretty
true.
funny.
Tom actually asked, did I keep the hubcap as a souvenir? I did not, but I did pick it up and I was like, this thing is freaking heavy. No wonder it knocked me out.
You should wear that thing as a necklace now.
Yeah, kind of a crazy story.
That's pretty funny.
Steve, yeah. See, this is why we should have banned him. He said a Michigan fan ever since he got hit in the head.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, Steve, I was a Michigan fan before I got hit in the head. But,
yeah, too much good stuff.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. I have one more question for you. And if anybody else has a question specifically for Dave on a more personal level, put that in the chat. Jennifer, welcome.
Welcome, Jennifer.
I just talked to Jen.
Got a good group tonight.
I know. Real fun.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay. So, but hey, bring on the questions. If you guys have questions, laundromat specific questions, business questions, anything along those lines, that's what we're here for. We'd love to answer the questions. We have some that we've pulled from like Laundromat Resource Forum and stuff like that, but we really want to answer your questions so we can answer some of those questions if we don't have any from you guys, but bring on the questions, man. That's what we're here for. Also, people in the chat love to chime in, and that is also my favorite part of these things too. So make sure you're having conversations about these questions that we're talking to. Okay. My other question, oh man, I'm so getting old. My last question that I had for you was one that you asked me, and now I can't remember off the top of my head. Hold on.
See, the good thing about never having a good memory is you don't even try to remember these things. I don't even try. I always have them written down.
I should have wrote them down ahead of time.
That paper will never let me down.
While I was waiting for you to get your audio going, I should have.
Yeah, sorry, I flustered you a little bit.
I know. Okay, so it was something about what's your now I remember the question. I can't think of the phrasing. What's your guilty pleasure? Do you have a guilty pleasure?
Well, guilty pleasure when it comes to food, that varies. That actually is a pretty random question because I'm kind of a hot and cold kind of guy. I am on a Chipotle kick right now. I don't know if that counts as a
Ooh,
guilty pleasure, but
that's pretty good.
I am on a kick like crazy. So I know that's not a very good guilty pleasure. Probably my serious guilty pleasure
Tasty.
is cookie cake. Like if we're talking like sweets, which is what a lot of people think of,
Yeah.
guilty pleasures. I don't know if you guys have those out there on the West Coast, like the Great American Cookie Company kind of thing. I know you don't
I
eat
don't think
sweets,
so.
but
I don't eat sugar. Yeah.
he doesn't eat sugar. But yeah, some of you guys at least know what that is. And I actually just had a birthday a couple days ago, and we don't get them very often, but every year on my birthday, my wife and boys will drive. It's about a half an hour away, so it's not close. They'll drive about a half an hour away and get me a cookie cake, which my boys absolutely want me to have a cookie cake because
Because they want it.
they get a cookie cake.
Yeah.
So then we compete over it. But anyways, yeah, as far as sweets is concerned, that's kind of my guilty pleasure.
Nice. Well, while we're on the topic, Eric wants to know what your best birthday party ever was.
Mm. When my wife turned 30, or I'm sorry, when I turned 30, my wife had a surprise party for me. And I'm an extrovert, as you can tell. And so that meant a lot to me. And I had a bunch of friends come in that I hadn't seen in years, from other states that she had reached out to and said, "Hey, I don't know if you can make it." I had some friends drive from 4, 5, 6 hours away just to come to my party for like 3 hours. So that was a pretty cool. That was a pretty cool thing. When you get to be 30, you kind of start to not think about yourself as much. You just kind of reach that point where it's all about the kids and that kind of stuff, and birthdays aren't as big of a deal, at least to me. So it was pretty cool that my wife did that, for me, and had intentionally reached out to some friends that I hadn't seen in a while, and I thought it was pretty cool that they took the time out of their day to come. So it was a pretty good crowd, and we had a good time. So yeah, that was a pretty cool experience. That's about as good
Yeah.
as it gets when you're a middle-aged dude.
Hey,
Not
man.
really exciting.
You know what? Yeah. I didn't really have that many parties, growing up. And I think I really discouraged it. And part of the reason is I had like a lot of friends and stuff. But I think I always just had this underlying fear that nobody would come to a
Mm.
birthday party if I had it. And so I just didn't really, I think I had a few when I was little, but after that, man, I think that I probably still have that fear. Like, man, who would come to a birthday party if I had one?
Hey, you need
But
to let your wife know if she throws you a surprise party. I am there.
okay.
I'm there. I'm gonna get on the Laundromat Millionaire jet. And
Yeah.
I'm coming straight to LA. So
Yeah.
just start let me know. I'll be
Okay.
there.
Real quick, my very last question for you, and then we're going to jump in. There's a couple questions coming in, and I want to make sure we get into that because that's what we're here for. But speaking of Laundromat Millionaire jets, I'm curious, what do you have coming down the pipeline from Laundromat Millionaire, or what's something you're excited about? And real quick, while you're thinking about what you can share about that, because I'm sure there's stuff you're working on you don't want to share yet. If you guys haven't gone to Laundromat Millionaire YouTube, make sure you head over there and subscribe. Get over to laundromatmillionaire.com. Get on his email list over there. Get on the Laundromat Millionaire Facebook group. He's got a lot of really, really great stuff going on. He's doing consulting. This guy is nationwide known. He's in all the, big publications now, and he's on the biggest podcast, not just mine, but even some that are slightly larger than mine. And so make sure that you're getting involved in what he's doing because he's bringing a ton of value to laundromat owners. Speaking of which, tell us something that you're excited about with Laundromat Millionaire.
You know what I'm super excited about is my wife and I on our episode. We just launched our podcast, Laundromat Millionaire Business Podcast.
Oh yeah, I didn't mention
we're
that.
We're up to like episode 7, so we're just getting started. But our most recent episode was just me and her. And I've always said for quite a while now, I've been saying I believe that the laundromat business is the best small business in America. And we basically spent an hour. We didn't have a guest. It was just me and her talking laundromats, which means mostly me, of course. And I basically broke it down and gave the 7 reasons that I believe that laundromats are the best small business in America. And so that was pretty cool to do because I've wanted to do something like that for a while, and I didn't know if it would be like before I knew I was going to have a podcast. Wasn't sure the context of how I would do it. I did it as an episode of the podcast, but the pretty cool thing is like we did that. Well, we released the episode about a week ago, and we're almost to 8,000 views on YouTube alone in 1 week, and that doesn't count the actual podcast platforms.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a pretty big deal to me as just like this guy in Cincinnati with his little YouTube channel without even 1,000 subscribers. So that's pretty cool. I think that's pretty cool. And I'm not a big numbers guy, but the reason that I care about that is because you can look at analytics and stuff and see that people are watching almost the whole video. And what's important to me is bringing people value and teaching people and educating people about the laundromat business and how great it is. And so it's not really about the views. It's about knowing that 8,000 people watch that video. That means a lot to me. And I do have a couple other cool things that I can't talk about right now that I'm super excited that I wish I could. But yeah, it was recently featured on Business Insider, which is a publication I've been checking out, reading for a long, long time, back when they were actually Business Insider magazine, and they actually published a magazine. So I thought that was a pretty cool thing for sure. And just launching my podcast was pretty cool.
I will say that you drove a lot of traffic to some of my stuff from you being on Business Insider.
Oh, really?
So
well, good.
Yeah.
Good to hear. Good to hear. But yeah, thanks for giving me the chance to have a few little shout outs there. That's some stuff that's going on. And then obviously, if you're paying much attention at all, I have a book coming out. It's going to be late fall. We're looking at probably October-ish. But if you go to my website and just click on the book tab, you can actually put your email address in. And when the book is actually released, we'll send you a notification. You're not committing to anything or buying anything. It's just kind of a notifying you when we launch. So we're looking at roughly October. And I'm pretty excited about that because the manuscript is finished. But I'm actually working with what they call a creative editor right now. And she's helping me with some of the flow to make sure that the finished version of the book is exactly what I want it to be and that it flows properly, because I'm obviously not a professional writer by trade. And that's a pretty exciting experience. She's an absolute rock star. She actually is, she used to work for 15 years for Segment, which is Oprah Winfrey's boyfriend of like 40 years or whatever. So anyway, just pretty cool stuff going on all around. And I appreciate you giving me the chance to kind of talk about it a little bit. But hey, we're already 20 minutes in. Let's help some people.
Get it.
What do you think?
Yeah. Well,
thanks so much.
Real quick, this is one of the questions, but it's relevant. And Melody wants to know how can she get in contact with you with a private question?
You can just email me, Dave at laundromatmillionaire.com is probably the easiest way to do it. I do offer a free 20-minute coaching call. So you can just log onto my website and actually fill out that form and request a free 20-minute call. If you actually want to talk to me, I'm happy to do that. There's no obligation, no pressure to purchase anything. Just kind of my way of giving back to the industry, one short call at a time. So yeah, you can either just email me or put that on through my website, Melody.
Awesome. Well, let's keep it rolling. And Steve has a question. It's right up your wheelhouse, which is happiness versus your own version of software for pickup and delivery. What do you recommend and why?
Yeah, what I tell people is happiness is a great thing, but it's not for everybody. In fact, I would even argue it's probably not for most people. The first decision you have to make with pickup and delivery is obviously, do you want to do it or not? And then the next question or the next decision you have to make is, or ask yourself is, how big do you want this to be? Because a lot of people get in the laundromat business because it's a simple business and they can scale it into multiple stores without having a huge staff. So a lot of people like to launch a pickup and delivery business with just a single van, and they don't really have any desire to grow into something substantial. They just see it as kind of an ancillary income, and that can be a substantial ancillary income. But those types of people, typically Happy Nest isn't the model for you, because you probably don't need Happy Nest, to be honest with you. That's the really quick version. Happy Nest, a lot of people think that it's just another software like all these other companies, Curbside, Clean Cloud, Wash Club, so on and so forth. And it's not. It's a revenue sharing partnership. And so we provide all the marketing. We provide the customer. We handle all the customer service. Obviously, you do get the software. We provide training and coaching and mentorship through me. I have a national consulting contract. When you join Happy Nest, we pay to fly you into Cincinnati. So you spend 2 days with my team of 40 people, and we train you on how to launch your business, how to scale your business, and then I coach and mentor you all along the way. And that is all at no charge. It's all part of the Happy Nest value proposition. But it is a revenue share. So you're sharing the revenue that's coming into the partnership with the Happy Nest team in Rhode Island. So it's not for everybody. It's for people that see an opportunity to scale and grow really quickly. want to capture a national audience, want to be a part of a national brand, see the value proposition in people like me, training you and mentoring you and coaching you along the ways. And we kind of have a 26-page playbook, for lack of a better term, that I provide to all the operators. That's just for Happy Nest operators. And it's basically a breakdown of my business model and what we've been doing for 5 years. Doesn't really cover too much of what I did that didn't work because we did a lot of that. But it mostly touches on and covers what I call cracking the code, where we got to the point where we realized we had a pretty well-oiled machine at this point, and we're able to scale it really quickly. So yeah, that's a real quick version of the difference in the two, or the difference in Happy Nest and really any of the other software services out there are just that. I mean, they're just a software service. Other than that, you're kind of on your own.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know it took you quite a bit to scale your business up and perfect all your systems, processes, and all that. Really great way to shortcut all that is to learn from you, who already spent the time and the money learning how to do all that stuff. So awesome. Awesome answer. Somebody asked, I forgot to write down the names of people, but somebody asked, about cleaning and maintenance schedule for, what should they be doing quarterly, every 6 months, every year for machines, boilers, hot water, tankless water heaters, that kind of thing. I don't know if you want to jump in on that.
Sure. Yeah, I want to hear what you do too with your stores. The only thing we really do on a big picture scale is having a commercial company come in and clean our vent system for our dryer vents. We do that once a year, and then we have a professional plumber come in and run a water jet system through all of our drains in our entire store, all the bulkheads and everything. And then they pressure wash and pump out our pits. One of our stores doesn't have a pit, but the other 3 do. And they clean those out. That's just kind of a maintenance once a year that we do. Other than that, everything that we do, we don't break anything down into quarterly or even 6 months. Everything that we do in our stores, other than those 2 major things that I can think of, are done on a monthly basis. And we basically break it down into, and I won't share it all with you, but we basically break it down into 2 things. One of them is a daily, or really a shiftly. Every shift, the attendant does X, Y, and Z. And a lot of times they do those things multiple times. Obvious things like emptying garbage and, cleaning the machine, so on and so forth. And then we have what are called detail cleaning, which are typically done every 2 weeks, but at a minimum every month. And those are more like, oil-based polishing of it, because we have a lot of stainless equipment. Oil-based polishing, what we call detail cleaning of the dryer vents, or not the vents, but the actual dryers, pulling panels off. Actually, instead of just wiping the lint screens with our hands, they'll actually take a shop vac, remove it, clean the inside of the dryer. Those types of things. The only other thing we do is we pretty much paint on a regular basis. I'd probably say pretty close to every year. I wouldn't say we paint every inch of our store every year, but we're constantly just touching up and trying to keep it, top of the industry. That's what I call it. But trying to keep everything nice and fresh. But what we recommend that you do is kind of break down your categories into those same 2 things, really, those 2 different categories of shiftly, or at least weekly, and then monthly. And then just have, you need to have a checklist. You need to have accountability. You can't just say these need to be done. You need to have some type of, and it doesn't have to be rocket science. It can just be a basic spreadsheet that you print off, and it has boxes where they have to check every shift. And then obviously having video surveillance system, we're not big on big brothering our employees, but we are big on keeping them accountable. And so the beauty of the cameras is they don't lie. If somebody says they did something and it doesn't look like they did, the cameras won't lie. They'll indicate whether they did what they were supposed to do or not. So that's kind of how we break down like our cleaning schedules.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah. Pretty similar to me. I think, there's some other things, like we do the boiler filter. I have an old school boiler, not old, but not tankless boilers. I got to clean the filter, stuff like that. But all pretty similar. And I kind of break it up into 2 categories that, it just helps me think about it. Stuff I do for me, for the business, and stuff I do for the customers. And really everything is for the customers. But when I say stuff I do for me, it's the cleaning the lint, the vents, and, all the stuff, jetting the plumbing, all that stuff. customers aren't going to know, right? Unless things go horribly wrong, they're not going to know. So that's more to keep the business up and all that. But also the other category is doing stuff for the customers. And that's the stuff that the customers are going to see. So that's going to be like painting. That's going to be like making sure, maybe replanting plants outside in the planters, just things to show the customers that I'm reinvesting. Cause a lot of that behind the scenes stuff is super important, but your customers just don't know about it. Like it's not going to directly benefit them in a way that they realize it. So thinking about it in those two categories has really helped me, because I always want to be doing something in both categories to make sure my store is performing optimally, but also that my customers see that I'm continually reinvesting in the business. So yeah, but similar stuff. We're not doing anything groundbreaking.
Yeah, one of the things that my distributor told me really early on, because those of you that don't know, he's kind of been my mentor and now one of my best friends. One of the things he told me early on, and he's been in the industry for, my goodness, probably over his whole life. He's 50 something years old, since he was born, basically. One of the things he told me early on is, even if you're not doing big things, always be doing something. That's where, like, your paint or putting a new TV up, or just hanging pictures, like, even just like scrubbing the walls, like they get dingy, carts rub up against them. It doesn't have to be a multi-million-dollar project, and it doesn't have to always involve new equipment. But really just keeping your store top of mind, because I know a lot of people that have built really beautiful laundromats, what we would call the Taj Mahal of laundromats. And within 3 or 4 years, they just kind of look tired. They're still better than most laundromats in the country, probably. But they just start to look tired. And it's real easy, especially when you're in your store every day, which I'm not. But there was a time where I was. It's real easy to take for granted, or it's real easy for your team to take for granted that top of mind, top of industry quality of cleaning and maintenance and things like that when you're in there every day. I mean, we know how life goes. You got a situation where you're just in and out every day and every week and every year. And it's I don't know if it's a best analogy, but like kids, you just, next thing you know, you blink your eyes and they're 16. They're getting their driver's license. Seems like just the other day they were born. Well, business can be the same way if we let it, especially if we're working really hard, which a lot of us do. And so it's really easy to just neglect those things, and you blink your eyes and 2 or 3, 4 years went by, and your store isn't really to the level of, you could even categorize cleaning in this category, or even just aesthetics and paint and things like that. So I think that's something that was really good advice that was given to me that I've always made a point to do. And I don't even do it every year. I pretty much, whenever I'm in my store, because I don't work in my stores much anymore, every time I walk in my store, I'm trying to look through the eyes of someone that's never been in my store. And it's not easy to do, but if you're conscious about it, you can see things that jump out at you.
Yeah. I was gonna say, that reminds me of when Andrew Cunningham came on my podcast, and he talked about, hey, have somebody come in and do an audit of your store.
Yep.
Because you kind of get blinders to, it's kind of like there's a commercial about being nose blind or whatever. Like you stop smelling yourself when you smell so bad for a long time, but everybody else can smell you. It's kind of the same. It's kind of the same concept, where you stop noticing the little details, because you see them all the time, or you're focused on the bigger picture, or you're really big, whatever the case may be.
Right.
So yeah. Well, let's keep it moving, because there's a lot of questions rolling in.
Yeah, we're getting
right
killed. Fantastic.
Yeah. So
thanks for all the great question, guys.
Yeah, let's talk about pet items. I don't live near like a horse property or anything like that, so I'm not dealing with horse blankets really. I don't know if you are. I've talked with people who have that issue. Some people dedicate specific washing machines. Like if they are in the thick of horse territory, they'll dedicate 1 or 2 washing machines for horse blankets and stuff like that. I don't know if you do anything different for pet items that are being washed, or if you have any advice on any of that.
For what we do is, for most pet items, and the 2 things that come to mind for me are horse blankets, which you described, which are a whole different animal. And honestly, just like dog beds. Those are kind of the 2 things that sort of jump out.
Yeah.
I haven't seen too many dogs beds where, just washing them in a commercial hard mount washer doesn't usually do quite a number. So I don't think there's anything special that needs to be done there. A lot of times when we see people putting those into the washers, we'll encourage them to use our extra wash and extra rinse function, which does take heavily soiled things and get them a little bit cleaner. But short of that, with like a dog bed or dog blanket or something like that, that's usually all that's really needed. Horse blankets, totally different, totally different animal. We are two of our four stores are kind of on the edge of an area where there are some horses. I wouldn't say we're in the thick of it. Like Joe Dan and Kelly Reed, they're in Lexington, Kentucky, which is like the horse racing headquarters of the world. And I'm sure they get a lot of other stuff, but we do get some horse blankets in. It's usually not real often, but we do get them fairly regularly. Not enough to dedicate a separate machine to them or multiple machines. But what we do is when we see a customer bring those in, we will approach them. We've trained our attendants to approach them right away and just ask them to let the attendant know when they're finished with that machine, and we will run it empty, just to rinse it out.
Yeah.
And so I know a lot of people that may frustrate, but we just kind of consider it part of the business. A lot of them will pay to wash the machine or pay to wash them twice in the machine without us even asking. I've heard of people requiring people to do that. If you bring horse blankets in, you wash them, you let the machine finish, and you're required to wash it again because they're so heavily soiled. I've heard of things like that. We just don't want to go that far with it. We usually just, if they take it out and the machine's really bad, we'll run it and then, sterilize it and things like that. But I can see why people do some of the things they do, because we get just enough where that's not a big deal for us to do that. But I can see in some scenarios where you would get inundated with that and it would get old really quick. So there's some pretty creative solutions out there, but a lot of times that extra wash, extra rinse helps a lot.
Yeah, I have a bar. This is a little bit different, but I have a barber shop in the shopping center of one of mine. And so they wash a lot of their stuff and it'll leave behind a lot of human hair. And so similarly, we'll either, run it after they run it empty. Usually we'll drop a little, bleach in there with it or whatever, just to, it just makes customers feel good that things have been kind of cleaned out, but really it's just mostly to get the hair out. And then dog beds is the other one. The other one that really kind of bothers me is like bath mats and things like that. They have the rubber, bottoms, and then the rubber gets everywhere. It's all over the place.
Yeah.
It's horrible, but
yeah, that is horrible. I just want to point out, we got someone in the comments that owns laundromats in Singapore, Thailand, and Burma.
And India. Yeah.
In India. I missed that. Okay. We are international folks.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. We're big time.
We are big time.
But seriously, thanks for joining us. That's the beauty of technology, is that we can jump on a computer and share information and share tips and tricks with people that are in our industry all over the world. I mean, how amazing is that we can do that, from our homes. And I'm guessing most of them are probably at their homes too. Yeah. Just amazing times.
Yeah. And vice versa, and hearing from them and what they're doing and what their business is like.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a question about interior decor. Should owners go, simple, clean, light, or should they be a little more creative with their interior decor? How does that affect business? Because obviously it's a little bit of an investment, to make things a little more creative. Is it worth it? What do you think?
I think it is worth it. But that being said, what I would tell people is it depends. And it depends on your budget and things like that. I mean, my stores, we're just now my stores are nice, but they're not over the top nice. And quite frankly, I want them to be over the top nice. And they're going to be very soon, because we are actually taking it to that next level. But those of you that know that I've been in the business for 12 years. And I started with not a lot of money. And so I think that's one of those luxuries that I do think is a good investment. I do think it adds to our value proposition. I do think it affects psychology of how people look at your store and how they view it. But do I think that you have to do that? Absolutely not. I think it's a luxury. And I do think it's a worthwhile investment if you have the finances to do that. But if you're doing that before doing 20 other things that probably most laundromats would probably need a lot more, then you're probably getting the cart before the horse. So I do think it's a worthwhile investment. In fact, I would even compare that to, a lot of people know I'm using Santa Wash Ozone, and I'm just tickled to death with it. It's absolutely amazing.
Mhm.
And it's just really changed one of our stores. We're going to be putting it in our store we're building right now. It's amazing. But that being said, people ask me all the time, and I kind of tell them the same thing about that I do about this. And I'm sure the people at Ozone really don't want to hear that. But the truth is, it's fantastic, but it doesn't really do you much good if you don't have your core business down first. Like
Mhm.
you can't just be a bad laundromat or even an okay laundromat and really get the value proposition out of something like Ozone. Not saying once again you have to be the Taj Mahal, but I think you have to get your business to a core competency where your business, your operations, and your facilities are at least in the top 25% in the country. And then you can do things like you're talking about with interior decor that can take you maybe to the top 10 or 5% in the country. And I think Ozone falls into that same category. I will say with Ozone that I do think down the road, it's going to become much more commonplace than it is right now. But I think right now it's treated as much more of a luxury than a necessity. But as our industry is figuring it out and our country is figuring out what ozone is and the value associated with it, I think it's going to revolutionize our industry. But that's kind of the categories I put those in is, hey, make sure you got all these other things right before you put in money into things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I mean, the it depends answer, can get a little frustrating, but it really does depend. And, if you're coming in with a slim budget and you're just trying to get your foot in the door for that first one, you just need to focus on getting the basics right. And I think, like you were saying, like once you have the basics down, then you can look at expanding. And a lot of times too, if you're coming in with a slim budget, what you can do is, practice running a solid business for a year or two
Absolutely.
and let the business pay for the upgrades
Mhm.
as you're more and more profitable. So, um,
Yeah, I want to
yeah,
jump in real quick. Erica's laundry wash and fold. We got some other kind of follow up questions to my happiness thing. I don't want this to turn into a happiness commercial. If any of you have any questions about happiness, once again, go to my website laundromatmillionaire.com. Click on the thing to request a free 20-minute call. I'm happy to jump on the phone and talk to you for 20 minutes about happiness and kind of explain and see if there's a fit. I don't have anything to sell you. There's no pressure. It's either a good fit for you or it's not, and we can talk about what that looks like a little bit more. So don't hesitate to reach out to me personally. I don't want to ignore or not answer these questions, but I also don't want this to turn into like a happiness commercial either, because that's not really why I'm here or why we're here. Yeah, so if you have an interest in that, just reach out to me. Once again, the email address, dave@laundromatmillionaire.com. I'm happy to jump on the phone and have a conversation with you. And if it is a good fit, then we'll rock and roll and we'll kill it. And if it's not, I'll tell you that as well. So don't hesitate to reach out to me. Um, yeah, Mike. I never know what to do with this name, Padramos Mike Stefanos. I'm not sure if I should call him Mike. He asked TV or no TV, and if yes, atmosphere or cable. What are your thoughts on that? Because I have a couple. I'm actually in the middle of some of that right now. But what are your
yeah.
thoughts?
Well, I mean, okay. So first of all, I would ask some customers what they think. But I do think if you're going to go the TV route, personally, I would go the atmosphere TV route. And the reason for that is, I mean, one, it's freer. But for two, I like
Freer? It's
yeah,
freer than free.
it's freer than cable, I guess.
Right.
Uh,
Oh, definitely.
yeah. The other thing that I like about it is that it's shorter form content. And so I'll have like during busy times, I'll have people sticking around watching a show, Jerry, whatever, like getting pulled in. And there's not a natural breaking point until a commercial 10 or 15 minutes later, right? And the shorter form content can help keep traffic kind of moving, especially on those busier days. It's not so big of a deal on like a Wednesday, midday or whatever, when it's not
Right.
so busy, but a Saturday, a Sunday, a Monday, those are busy times. And I want to keep, not that I'm trying to usher people out the door, but I don't want people lingering,
Yeah.
clogging things up. Joe Dan Reed, what's up?
Hey,
Uh,
Joe.
yeah. So, I mean, I think there's something I think there's something to be said for atmosphere, and especially, kind of going back to the interior decor question, you do want to create a welcoming atmosphere, and you do want to create, I've had times where I have TVs in mine. I have one TV in one of mine and two TVs in the other one, and so I try not to make it the main thing. There's not TVs everywhere you look, because most people are looking at their phones a lot of the time, anyways. But having the atmosphere, I've forgotten to turn them on. My attendants have forgotten to turn them on. I come in and it's just like awkwardly silent, right? Like you don't want that, but you also don't want things blaring to where conversations can't happen, because laundromats tend to be community gathering spots. So you want to try to find that balance of creating a good atmosphere. I do like positive programming. I think atmosphere offers that. And a lot of times if you have your TV on, network TV or even a lot of cable channels, it's a mixed bag. Some of the stuff's positive, some of it's negative. And, I just like to have the positive atmosphere there. And music wise, I think helps create an atmosphere. So if you don't go TV, I would have it like some background music, that's positive, but also appropriate for your community. That's my thoughts. What do you think?
Yeah, so I think it's actually a couple part question, just my opinion, but having used to have run unattended stores and now running fully attended stores, I agree with your philosophy on an unattended store or even partially attended. You don't want to make it quite too comfortable, because they will kind of hang out. And by they, we know who we're talking about, and it's usually not your customers. So you don't want to make them too comfortable. And that's a sad but realistic proposition. So I think you kind of have to break down to your business model. The flip side of that is I will say that if you're fully attended, you shouldn't have that problem at all. And if you do, you need to retrain your employees. They need better training or better oversight or discipline or whatever you want to call it, because they are responsible for that. And so we don't have to worry about making it too great for our customers, because our employees' job is to make sure that we don't have those hangers on. It's a big part of their job. And if you're not fully attended, then you can't do that. And I get that. And I've been there. But if you are fully attended, in my opinion, I don't think you can make it too nice, or too comfortable or things like that. It's a balancing act. So that's the first thing I would say. We have, in our stores right now, we have cable in our stores. We have multiple big screens in the walls. But we also keep them on closed captioning, and we have background music. We have, name of the company, but it's an actual company that provides background music for typically restaurants. And so it's that really subtle background music.
Elevator music, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a name for it. I think maybe they just call it background music, but it's very comfortable. They even control the noise. They provide a variety of different music. They, make sure that there aren't offensive songs in there, things like that. So it's truly not just the radio going, but it's a comfortable background music. And so even if the TVs didn't get turned on, we would never have that awkward silence that a lot of laundromats have. And so that's something we believe in. That being said, I don't know if Mike Kelly's on here, but I am going to be reaching out to Mike Kelly. He and I have talked a little bit, which he's the one that kind of our connection in the industry for Atmosphere TV. For those of you that don't know what Atmosphere TV, do you know what episode you had him on? He was on the Laundromat Resource podcast.
Oh, look, it's one of the more popular ones.
Just look up Mike Kelly on Laundromat Resource. He did a full interview. I think it was like probably an hour and a half long, and I'm sure he talked about lots of things. It's been a while since I watched it, but I know he talked about Atmosphere TV. He's one of their representatives for our industry, and that podcast will go a long ways. So go check that out for sure. But my point is, I'm in the process of getting rid of the cable, and we're going to be putting Atmosphere TV in our stores. I'm a big believer in letting other people try things out and then getting feedback, just because I know so many people in the industry, rather than being the guinea pig myself. I did that with ozone. I've done that with a lot of different things. And I know so many people in the industry, and I respect so many people in the industry, that when the same people that operate at the top of the industry are saying this is a good move, that's a lot of times when I'll make the move, and I'm there. So I don't have Atmosphere TV right now, but I am a big fan of it. I know it's also, the programming is very positive, as you mentioned, but I know it's also very coordinated and designed in a way to work without sound. So it's designed to work in a way where it's ideal with that subtle background music that I was describing. And so I see it as like kind of this perfect atmosphere environment, of having the background music and having the atmosphere TV, the positive programming, and it's designed to watch with the volume turned down. So those are my thought process on it. And I'm actually like I said, in the next few weeks, I'll be reaching out to Mike to actually place my orders.
Yeah, I have Atmosphere TV. In fact, I'll drop a link in the chat in case anybody wants to check it out. Yeah, I have Atmosphere TV. I love it. It blows me away. There's a lot of different channels on it that you can use. This is not like a sales. Well, I mean, you can get it for free with the link that I'll drop in the chat if it's something you're interested in. But I won't belabor it. But there's a lot of cool channels on there, and it is designed for use with no volume, but it also does have volume if you want the volume. So, okay, let's keep it moving. Somebody asked about the day-to-day as a laundromat owner, and I think we probably shouldn't go too much into that because it's a really big, it depends, and it depends on how you run your business. But I will just say, and maybe you can add to this if you feel like you want to, but I will just say that when you're buying your first laundromat in the very beginning, you can probably plan to spend a little more time than you're hoping to spend long-term at your laundromat, working on your laundromat, getting to know the business. If you have staff, getting to know the staff, getting to know, the customers and the community, and figuring out just how to be a laundromat owner. And eventually, you should be able to taper off some of that time. And there may not even be a day-to-day necessarily. It might be, 2 or 3 times a week, or even less, depending on how you run your business. So it's a really big, it depends on a day-to-day, and a lot of people run their businesses very differently. So I don't know if you want to add anything to that question. It's just a really hard question to answer because, if it's one thing I've learned from doing like 56 or 7 podcast episodes and interviewing all these owners is that as simple as our business is, there's an infinite number of ways to run this business, and the day-to-day looks very different for everybody, I think.
That is absolutely true. And the thing I'll add to that is, if you're operating with one type of business model, and there's a hybrids of I've been known for saying many times there's 5 or 6 different models in our industry for how to run a laundromat. But the truth is, like, there's a whole bunch of hybrids of all those 5 or 6.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that any of us are the same or identical. But what I encourage people to do when you see other things in the industry that pique your interest, because I've been there, I encourage people to go and talk to people that are doing it, and see what are their pain points. This industry is fantastic in a sense of people will almost always give you a small amount of time. So if you reach out to XYZ person in wherever, very seldom will people, especially people that you would see that have that, what me and Jordan call that abundance mindset, that would be operating and, be on this type of chat, or be willing to go on a podcast and share their stories, things like that. A lot of times they're not going to be able to or willing to give you hours and hours of their time, to coach you or mentor you, which is why me and Jordan do what we do. We know that they're limited for their time. But the flip side of that is they're almost always willing to give you a little bit of time, because usually they've had people along their journey give them a little bit of time. And if nothing else, they see it as kind of their way of paying it forward. And that's part of why I do the 20-minute free calls. But that being said, just be respectful of their time, but reach out to people that are doing the things you want to do. When I evolved from unattended to partially attended to fully attended, added wash, dry, fold, added pickup and delivery, I was reaching out to and connecting with people that were doing these things actively and getting tips and tricks. And none of them had all the answers. I had to meld that information and, what I call pulling the golden nuggets out of that conversation, and make it into my own model. So my own model is like no one else is in the industry, which is why we're all unique. But if you're looking at those different types of things, just talk to people that are doing those things. Because most people in our industry are pretty willing to share a small amount of time.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. And I think that's generally good advice for anything that you're wanting to do, right? Is find people who are doing it and model after them. Don't reinvent the wheel. And I'm naturally a reinvent the wheel kind of guy. And I've had to learn difficult lessons of, hey, it's way easier if you just model after what successful people are doing, if they're doing it the way you want to do and getting results that you're trying to get.
Yeah.
Okay. Somebody asked, when do you stop maintaining machines and just retool, buy new machines? Or like how long do they last? I'll chime in on that.
Go ahead.
Andrew Cunningham, again, I mentioned him earlier, but he came on the podcast and I love what he said.
Great
He
episode,
said,
by the way, guys. That's an episode
yeah,
of the Laundromat Resource podcast, in the 40s, I think,
yeah,
maybe. But go check that out, Andrew Cunningham, Laundromat Resource podcast. Watch that episode. I don't know Andrew personally, but it was fantastic.
yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, super good episode. I mean, he's just a wealth of knowledge. I think, the title is something about him being a laundromat encyclopedia. So
Right.
that tells you anything. He knows his stuff. And he basically said machines have two lives. They have their functional life and they have their fiscal life. And their functional life is always going to be longer than their fiscal life, which means you can keep machines running for decades. And some laundromat owners do that. That's part of their business model, whether they do it intentionally or not. That's how they run their business. So you'll see laundromats with 30, 40-year-old machines because you can kind of duct tape them and patch them and pop in new parts forever. But there's a point in time where they outlive their fiscal life, which means you're spending more money keeping them afloat than you would if you just retooled. Not just necessarily that you're spending, but you're also losing out on customers because you have older machines. So if your machines are breaking down a lot and you're having to, spend a lot on repairs, or if it, kind of the classic slot machine, washing machine where your customers come in and put money in and they're not really sure if the machine's going to work or not this time. It might be exciting in Vegas. It's not as exciting when you're trying to do your hated chore of laundry, right? You want those machines to be working, and eventually your customers will stray off to another laundromat that has, machines that are more reliable. And the other thing about it too is that when you don't keep your machines, in that, fiscal lifetime, when they start creeping out of that, you make yourself vulnerable to competition coming in and either retooling their stores or building a new store. And it's so all that to say, there's two lives. So when are those lives? It depends on how well you've taken care of your machines or previous owners have taken care of the machines. I found that, usually right around, for the front load washing machines, right around the 15-year mark, give or take, is a pretty good ballpark. They can last, a little bit longer if you take good care of them. Dryers, maybe a little bit longer. Just again, ballpark episode, or just to kind of give you a framework to work with. But what do you got to say about that?
Yeah. What I do personally, that's how I'm going to answer the question. What I do personally is with my hard mount machines, is typically around the 12-year mark, I'll replace them.
Mm-hmm.
And I can usually, they still have a life cycle left on them. You talked about the functionality. There are people out there that will pay 20, 25 cents on the dollar for those things at that point, usually, sometimes even a little bit more. And I just take that, recirculate it back into my business, use that as a down payment usually on my new equipment. But, if you guys haven't checked out any of my stuff, I'm a pretty big believer in staying top of the industry, operations, but also facilities wise. And we can't do that every year. We can't put new equipment in every year. But there's a lot of different factors associated with replacing equipment. You buy equipment, you get depreciation on that. You get tax benefits to that. You get ADA tax credits for purchasing new equipment up to a certain amount each year. There's a lot of different factors associated with it other than just does the machines run or not. And one thing I will is push back. And I'm sure people disagree with me, and that's fine. I'll push back on the idea that all customers care about is does a machine work or not? Because that's one of the big misconceptions out there. And I know a lot of people are passionate about that. And I'm not here to debate or argue. I'm just here to tell you that there is a customer base out there that does care about that. They don't care if it's brand new. They don't care about the brand, but they do care about, they have that shiny object syndrome. They will pay more. This has been proven over and over again. People will pay roughly 20 to 25% more for the same size machine if it's brand new. Now, there are some reasons for that we don't want to take up this whole time, but they like the modernized controls. Those give value to our customers. Don't tell me that a 20-year-old machine is the same machine as a new machine, because they're not. Our industry is innovating. Now, some manufacturers innovate more than others. Then there's the energy savings. There's really never been a time in our industry where 15 to 20-year-old equipment, purchasing new equipment, will almost always pay for itself. And there's many factors into that are too quick to go into, or too much to go into right now. But ultimately, the way I'm answering the question is, what do I do? And it's usually around the 12-year mark. Is that equipment garbage? Do I scrap it? No, absolutely not. Could I nurse it for another 10 or 15 years? Yes, I probably could. I have no interest in doing that because, as you mentioned a minute ago, Jordan, the reality is all I'm doing is giving other people an opportunity to come into my market and do something better than me, and I'll never give a competitor that opportunity. By the way, I just found out last week that within a quarter mile of the new store I'm building, that nobody knows I'm building right now, it's a closed down building, somebody's building a new laundromat.
No way.
So I found out through my network of people. It's being built. It's very small. They're building it in a gas station.
Oh no.
It's a gas station with like 1,000 square foot laundromat off to one side of it in the same building, no parking. Whoever that is, like, you should have watched the Laundromat Resource podcast more, because you just made a very, very bad mistake. So anyway, I don't know why I brought that up, but anyway, because we were talking about competitors coming to the market. Right. They didn't do their homework. And I'm building a $1.3 million store. So good luck, people.
Yeah. That's Ohio money too.
That's Ohio money.
Store here
in California, 1.3 million. That's what
1,000 square
Jordan
foot
paid for his garage door.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And Joe Dan Reed, he put his mark at 7 to 10 years. So I mean, right there. So and I would say that you and Joe Dan and some of the others in the industry, those are the people you want to model your business off of, right? The people who are doing things right, who are on Business Insider, who are doing it right. And Joe
Dan and Kelly just built a couple stores that are beautiful, by the way.
Right.
Check those out. Joe Dan's on YouTube. I don't think it's under his name. I think it's under his business. Splash him out. Joe has a YouTube channel. And he's put a lot of good videos on there about the store that they just built. And then there's another one they're putting some new equipment in. So anyway, check them out because they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. Didn't mean to interrupt.
No. And Joe Dan was on the podcast, and I'm pretty sure there's a link to his YouTube on the show notes of that podcast. So go check him out for sure. Okay, good. Well, real quick, somebody asked, and we don't need to go into this too much, but somebody asked, where do you sell used equipment? And I'll just real quick, here's a couple of little things that you can do. There's probably a ton of other places that you can look. So number one, you can talk to your distributor. They might be a good resource. Installers and mechanics might be a good resource. They can kind of connect owners, and they know what owners need what. So talk to them. In your distributor, if you don't know any, distributor can be a connection there, or brokers. And the other thing, there's a Facebook group that's Laundromats Buy and Sell, I think. People are selling equipment on there all the time, and so you can check there. So there's a few spots that you can look to sell your equipment. Let's see. I mean, there's a lot of questions here. So if you're doing a high volume wash and fold service, this is for you, Dave. Do you just have somebody folding, or people folding all the time? That's just their spot, or do they follow loads of laundry through the whole process? How do you do that?
Yeah, what we do is we believe in what we call ownership of the order.
Okay.
And so we do not believe in the assembly line mentality.
Okay.
At all. And the main reason for that is one, repeatable processes, scalability, because we're always focused on the 2 to 5 year out window, not what we do today, but what we're going to be doing in 2 to 5 years. We want repeatable processes, but we also want our quality is the most important thing for us. We have kind of a formula that we teach to Happy Nest operators to make sure the business model works and is profitable. It's all part of the training and things like that. But the really quick version is our attendants handle the order from beginning to end. So one person has ownership of that order. They sort the order, they load the order, they check pockets, They move it to the dryers. They put it on the right temperature. They remove it to make sure it's not wrinkled. And then they fold and package the order. And so if there's anything wrong with that order at any point in the process, there's one person that has accountability for that. Now they know that. So that makes them psychologically step up their quality control, knowing that anything goes wrong with this order, it's on them, including a pen didn't get pulled out of their jean pockets or whatever, and ruin the load all the way to the end to the finished product. But it's about accountability, it's about quality control, but it's as much for us about repeatable processes and knowing that if there's a breakdown in our supply chain, then we know right where to go. There's no debating. We can go to it. If this person needs extra training, if it's a one-off, hey, they're a rock star. They made a mistake. They're human. We take care of the customer and then move on and don't worry about it. But you'd be surprised how often we hire new people, because we're always hiring because we're growing so fast. And you bring in new people and you see the same consistent thing happening all the time. And then you look and it's the same person, and they just need more coaching. They need more training. Or maybe this isn't the job for them if they're not a detail-oriented person. But I'm pretty passionate about that. And once again, we've been doing this almost 5 years now, with just pickup and delivery alone, not to count wash and fold. And quality is more important than anything, quality control. And we've tried a lot of different things. We've tried the assembly line mentality. We've tried the rock stars as folders and everybody else are just loading washers. And that's just what we believe works, and it works really well. And it's really what makes us great at what we do. Is it easy to do? No, it's not. I mean, you have to have really good training. You have to be really good at screening people during the interviewing process. You have to find detail-oriented people. There's kind of a lot that goes into it, but we're a pretty big believer. That's I don't know that that's a secret sauce, but that's one of our sauces, secrets to success for sure.
Yeah. Well,
And I know a lot of people do it other ways, and so But
yeah.
I think the other thing I'll say too is we do almost exclusively residential and what I call light commercial, meaning we rarely have orders over 100 pounds, and our average orders are right around 50 pounds, pounded per customer. So we're not doing thousands of pounds of white towels and things like that, like some of these big commercial outfits do. And so if you're doing that type of laundry, then it may make more sense to have an assembly line mentality. But what we do, what we teach at Happy Nest, is what we call the ownership of the order. So that's important when you're doing that residential, like commercial stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. Brian Henderson had a good suggestion too, saying, keep a permanent record of who processed an order, including a signed postcard in the order, and it helps with accountability. And I like that, just kind of a personal touch for the customers, but also utilizing it as a accountability tool for attendance. I really like that. And ownership of the order it's just so strong, that just like, it sounds so good that you like have to use it. Yeah.
It works. So it works really well. And I'll tell you this, if you want to know how to do wash, dry, fold well, listen to Brian Henderson. Guy's a rock star.
Mr.
Operations.
Wash, dry, fold.
Operations wise, you need to listen to that guy, because he knows his stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody said ownership route is good, but feel it slows down. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
it doesn't. I'll tell you right now, it doesn't. And if it does in your scenario, then you operationally have a problem with training and coaching and things like that. And I'm not saying that to insult anybody. The reason I can say that is I've done it all. Like we've done, 20, 30,000 pounds a month for many, many years now. And if you build the right processes and you have the right leadership, meaning general managers, training processes, screening when hiring, you have supervisors on duty that are overseeing quality control. You got to build a team. I mean, I'm not just saying you just throw some laundry at a person and say best wishes, but if you build those processes, then it really doesn't slow them down once you get that nailed. But that's not easy to get nailed. If it were easy, everybody would do it. Yeah. So it's not easy. But I don't doubt that it may slow them down if your training processes aren't where you want them to be.
Yeah. There's a couple questions that I think go hand in hand. Somebody asked what's something that you've done to wow your customers. And the other question, I think Brad asked, are there any, have we seen any purple cow / I think he said yellow tux. I don't know what that one is, but purple cow type differentiators for laundromats or laundry services. Basically, if you're not familiar, Purple Cow is a marketing book. It's a really good book. If you haven't checked it out, it's real short. But
Seth Godin.
Yeah, with Seth, it's
Yeah.
really good. The concept behind it is, hey, everybody's trying to, get attention. And, if you're going to look like every other cow, you're not really going to stand out. Nobody's going to pay any attention to you. But if you see a purple cow on the side of the road, you're going to turn your head and look and see what's going on with that purple cow. So be a purple cow. Right. And so, just, I guess, have you seen any kind of purple cow differentiators in the industry out there?
Man. Yeah, I call them market differentiators. What I would tell you, those are kind of two different questions, but sort of the same. So the person that asked, I know it was a different question, but the person that asked, what do you do to wow your customers? My answer is everything. Everything that we do, our goal is to wow our customer. We want to hear, we do hear, and we always want to continue to hear over and over again on a daily basis. Wow, like I never expected this from a laundromat. And one of the things I learned real early on with the industry is because the bar is so low collectively, which I hate, but because the bar is so low, it's really not hard to wow people, guys. It's really not hard. You just got to care about people, keep the place clean, find great people, reward them, encourage them, coach them up, compensate them fairly. I mean, it's a lot of it's about your team. So we really focus on wowing. Excuse me. We really focus on wowing people primarily through our team. We don't pay minimum wage. We're nowhere near minimum wage, even for our attendants. They're about $4 to $4.50 above minimum wage, and our minimum wage is only $8.50 in Cincinnati or in Ohio, or I think it's $8.75 now. But anyway, we're paying our attendants over $12 an hour. So you can attract kind of that second tier labor pool. So we try to wow them with our facilities too. And I think that's where a lot of people's minds go, the granite countertops and the brand new machines and all those things, which is great. We try to wow people with those things too. But the problem is when you put a new machine in, I remember when I bought my first brand new car, I was so tickled to death at the fact that I bought a brand new car. And my dad, who wasn't a fan of brand new cars, he went and picked it up. He took me and dropped me off. We drove back to his house. We had dinner, and I was pretty young. I was so proud of this brand new car, and he looked at me, and I had driven it from the lot to his house, and we were having dinner. And he said, "Well, congratulations. I know this is a big thing for you. You're really excited about your new car." And he goes, "But I have bad news for you." I said, "What's that?" And he said, "It's now used."
Yep.
And I was like all of 22, and he totally took the wind out of my sail.
Yeah.
But anyway, the reality is like I'm a big fan of new equipment and all these things, but it's not new very long. And then it's, newer, but it's not brand new. So if facilities is your differentiator, then that's good. Like you shouldn't neglect those things, but if that's your only differentiator is having there you go. That's right. So we have to look at our team, and we have to look at our operations and our training and our screening processes and our compensation schedule and how do we motivate people and the culture of our team and all these things. So the answer to the question of how do we wow people, that's how we wow people. Because when they come into a laundromat, they're not sure if the equipment will be reliable. So if it is, we've kind of wowed them. If it's new equipment, we've really wowed them. But then when they actually get what's called customer service, which is kind of a long lost art in any industry anymore, but especially in our industry, that'll wow them like nothing you can buy. So that's my team. I say it all the time. I'd put my team up against anyone in the country. And that's a credit to them, not me, by the way. But so if you want to wow people, don't just have a body in your store and call it attended. Put the right person in your store that has what I call the heart of a servant, that genuinely gets a lot of internal gratification out of serving and helping others. They're not just there to collect a paycheck. And these people are hard to find. I'm not here to tell you they're a dime a dozen, because they're not. When you find them, take care of them, treat them accordingly. And when you bring in people that are not that, get them out of there, because the old spoiled apple, bad apples spoil the bunch. I mean, that will happen in a culture of any business, but especially a small business. So that's how we wow people, looking for those market differentiators. And there's a million of them, but our people and our team and our processes are a big part of that.
Yeah. And I would just add, this is not really adding to what you're saying, because I think you're just nailing it, but just, I guess, to throw on top of that, I think anything that you can do to make the chore easier, is something that you can do to differentiate, right? Even if it's, if you buy a store and it doesn't have enough seating, like putting extra seating in there or enough putting folding table in, anything you can do to make it easier can be a market differentiator. And I've had clients who, we've done an analysis of all the competitors in the area, and we've noticed there's nowhere to sit, maybe like one or two benches in every single one of the laundromats. And just by adding a couple more benches, just places for people to sit for the hour that their stuff is in the laundry, in the washers and the dryers, has been a big differentiator for them, even though it's a really small thing, right? And I think one of them, they had to give up. They had some video games in there, and we're like, well, how much really do these video games bring in? And obviously, a bench isn't directly bringing in any money, but having a place to sit will, in a situation like that, did bring customers to that client, and it ended up providing a lot more income for them and a lot more value to the clients than the video games did. So
yeah, that's a big thing. I'm going to jump on that real quick and then we'll get on, because I know we got other ones and we're running out of time. Guys, don't let anyone tell you that a folding table doesn't make you money. Don't let anyone tell you that seating doesn't make you money. Don't let anyone tell you that removing those video games, and I don't know your square footage and stuff, but removing those to put more folding space or seating in won't increase revenue, because that's complete garbage. And I'm proof of it. And I can once again point to hundreds of people in the industry that have said, you know what, if my core business is at a very high level, top of the industry level, then yes, I'll add coin pushers or video games or whatever. But until I am at the top of the industry, that other stuff is irrelevant. Because if you think people aren't leaving your store because you don't have enough folding tables, you're out of your mind. And the reality is, I don't know what the percentages are, but I bet it's as high as 60 or 70% of laundromats in the country have not even close. I mean, they could double the amount of folding space that they have and still not have enough for the machines that they have in the store. Having wide aisles, some of the best things you can do in your business might seem counterintuitive. You can actually increase revenue by removing equipment.
Mm-hmm.
Just as a quick example, I've personally done it. I know many other people that have. So don't let that 1978 antiquated attitude, old school attitude towards our laundry industry convince you to do something just because it sounds great in theory. Think it through. Focus on your customers, their experience, the throughput, getting them in, having them comfortable while they're there, and getting them out. That's what they care about. They don't care about all this other stuff. But if you think they don't care about having a folding space and having to fold out of a cart or on their daughter's back as she bends over, or folding on top of a washer that they just poured bleach into, I don't care if it's your business. I don't care if it's Sunday or not. Nobody wants to operate that way. And you're just giving your competitors an opportunity to be better than you. So don't give them that opportunity.
Yeah, I love that. And, I think a lot of what both of us are trying to do is kind of question some of the older assumptions. A lot of the older assumptions were, owners sit at their laundromats all day, or owners keep equipment for 30 or 40 years, and squeezing every bit of life out of the machine is the best way to go, or cramming as much machine as possible into, your laundromat is the best way to go. Well, I don't know about you, but if you follow Luke Williford, who owns like 40,000 laundromats or whatever, you can literally drive trucks inside of his laundromat between, through the aisles, because he's got so much space in there, and he could cram a whole lot more machines in there. But there's something to be said for the flow of things. There's something to be said for having enough space to move around and having enough folding, having enough seating, these kinds of things. And I think that some of these older assumptions have really held back our industry a little
Absolutely.
bit, and challenging those and questioning those as you're taking over laundromats. It might feel counterintuitive to take out machines to add folding or seating, but that might be the very thing that is a purple cow differentiator in your market for you. So so don't be afraid, and use your head, right? Like, that's what we're trying to do, is use our head and make decisions based off of what life is like now, not what life was like 30 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fantastic. Jessica asked she asked it actually asked a while back. I missed it. She said, "Could you explain day to day as a laundromat owner?" Um, real quick, what's your day to day like?
My day to
Or
day,
maybe week to week is probably a
yeah,
better way to.
yeah. My day to day is all over the place. I'm
Yeah,
not at my laundromats every day.
right.
Week to week, I mean, I'm at my laundromats a couple days a week, generally speaking. Um, Generally, I try to get there at least 2 days a week, sometimes three, just to kind of check in on things. I'm still over here slumming it as a coin store. So I'm, collecting quarters and filling up change machines and doing all that stuff. I'm checking on machines, making sure machines are working. I'm checking in with my employees, seeing, uh, first of all, like what's new in the laundromat and getting kind of their perspective on things, making sure they've been doing the things that they're supposed to be doing. I'm talking to customers while I'm there, those types of things, make sure, I think I said it, but all the machines are working, all that stuff. And so that's what I'm doing while I'm at the laundromats. When I'm not at the laundromats and I'm, working on the business, if you will, I'm making decisions like, when am I going to add new equipment to my stores? When, what marketing am I going, to implement now? How's my current marketing doing? If you're doing digital marketing, you should be checking out the performance of that digital marketing. Well, I do it myself because I own a marketing company, but if, hopefully you have somebody doing it for you. If you don't know how to do the marketing,
And if
and
you
you're,
don't, call Jordan, guys. Okay,
yeah, there's tons of people
laundromat
out there to
resource
do it.
marketing, isn't that what you call it? Right,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
guys. Jordan and his brother know what they're doing over there. Give them a call if you don't know. Sorry, didn't mean to jump in again, but
No, yeah,
I'm gonna I'm gonna pump you up.
yeah. Yeah, thanks, man.
Great guys, they
Uh,
know what they're doing. So if you're looking for somebody to do marketing for your laundromats, then there's a few people in the industry, but
mhm.
you want to focus on someone that knows our niche, knows our business, knows our industry. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Whether you go with us or not, find somebody who knows this industry or who at least knows brick and mortar business, because it's different
Mhm.
from what a lot of marketing companies do. If you're selling things online and stuff like that, just SEO works a little differently. The way you set up your website, conversion works different. So you want to have somebody who does, small business, brick and mortar marketing, if not laundromat specific.
Yeah.
I don't even remember what we were talking about before that, but I
So
don't
we
even
got
remember.
we got 10 minutes left, guys. Get your questions in there. We're going to try to get as many as we can. We're going to get as we get down to the wire, we're going to get a little bit shorter in our answers just to try to get more questions. Brian Henderson says greeting someone by name when they return to your store is a wow moment. No kidding. Customer service, something our industry didn't even think about even a
Mhm.
few years ago, quite frankly. But I do think they're figuring it out. And then another comment he had similar. He said, "Get away from the room full of vending machines mentality. This is not a commodity business. Get away from that. Build strong bonds with your customers. You want to wow people. That's how you wow them. And you should have a good store. You should be clean. Your machine should work. All those things. But you can actually have a step below as far as your facilities, and if you do that and they don't, let me tell you something, your value proposition is through the roof compared to them. And there's many examples of that in our industry. So keep that in mind for sure.
Yeah.
Steve Clayton said, back to his Tide question, which I guess we missed his Tide question. Sorry about that, Steve. Automated detergent softener. He wants to know if we think it's the way of the future, or how far out for the rest of us, or too bleeding edge. I assume you know what he's talking about, but he's referring to the Tide stores that have
Mhm.
automatic detergent injectors and things like that. You have any thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that that is going to be everywhere anytime in the next even 5 years, but kind of going back to, man, anything you can do to simplify things for the customer and make things easier on them. So if they're not lugging around a giant, detergent thing, hey, it might be the way to go. And again, it's kind of it depends, but man, it does simplify that process. It does require less of the customer. They can just kind of throw their stuff in and hit go. and be off to the races. They're not worried. You have to worry about how much do you put in. You're not having to worry about how much soap is in there. And, I get complaints all the time where people put way too much in there and, it doesn't rinse it all out and they don't use fabric softener, all that. You guys know what I'm talking about. So, I like it. I mean, I think there's something to it. I don't know if it's going to be the wave of the future or not, but I like it. I don't know. What do you think?
I think it's terrible.
Awesome.
I'm going to disagree with you. I'm going to disagree with you. Having been in the business for 12 years, a couple things I've learned about laundry is that it's very personal. It's for the customer, whether it's wash, dry, fold, whether it's pick up and delivery. And we do a lot of pick up and delivery and a lot of wash and fold. And you know what people want? They want it done their way. They don't want it done your way. They don't want you to think what's best. You're not the expert. They want it done their way. It's their laundry. And that's the case for self-serve. And just like they don't want you cutting them a little bit short on the water and, hey, quit cheating on the water there. I personally have pretty strong feelings towards this. I think I get it. Like, I get why the people at Tide thought it was a good idea, because I think everything you just mentioned is probably their thought process. And I think that that's accurate stuff. I'm not saying that's inaccurate, but in my opinion, when I put myself in the consumer shoes, I think what you just said is really good until they realize, well, wait, but what if I want more detergent? Or, okay, well, you guys love Tide because Tide's your brand and it's a Tide laundromat. But if to come into a Tide laundromat, I can only use a Tide product and I want to use XYZ and I want to use 3/4 of a scoop instead of half of a scoop, I don't have that luxury. And whether that actually cleans their laundry better or not is irrelevant, folks.
It is irrelevant.
It is irrelevant.
Yeah.
They do not care what we say. Okay. It's their laundry, and self-serve, drop off, pick up and delivery. I have learned over the years, many stores are doing this, talking to people all over the industry. There are certain things that our customers don't want us to decide for them. Water level is one of them, and we all know how berserk they'll go over that. And they don't want us choosing which products they use based on whether P&G owns it or not. And they certainly don't want us telling them how much detergent to use. Whether we know they're using too much and it's wasteful or not is really not part of the conversation. So that's why I feel the way that I do. I try to put things like that in a context of the customers, plural, many, like put hundreds of them in a room and tell me if they think it's going to be a good idea to tell them they can only use Tide and they can only use this much. And you're not in an opportunity to really explain to them why that's important. And even if you could, they don't care. You don't know best. They know best. So I go back to the psychology.
Yeah. And I don't disagree with you there, but out of curiosity, do you think that there's a difference between in this regard between self-service and pickup and delivery, for example? Because they're not saying 3/4 of us. You're dictating how they're doing it. You might have a couple options for them, like a sensitive detergent, a Tide, or depending on how you run your business, right? But you are kind of in that scenario dictating for them how their laundry is going to be done. So I'm just curious, do you think it has to do with the different customer?
I think there's two parts of the equation. One of them is the amount of product, which they don't really care about. Now, self-serve, they do. You're right. So that's a great point. Pick up and delivery, they can put extra detergent and they don't actually ever know if you ever used it. They just care that the laundry came back clean. I think you're right on there. And I could be wrong, unless maybe Tide laundromats have changed. My understanding is that their options are Gain and Tide.
I'm sure for sure.
Yes. Yeah. For pickup and delivery. So there's the amount of detergent used, which I don't think they actually care about, but they do care which product you use. And so for pickup and delivery, drop off laundry, those types of things, to say, these are your two choices. I think that's a really, really bad mistake. We offer anywhere from 5 to 7 at Happy Nest, depending on the operator and what they want to do. But personally in Cincinnati, because we're also operators for Happy Nest in Cincinnati, we have 6 on their list, but then we also have a disclaimer that they can put any laundry detergent that they want in their bag. If it's not one of the 6 we provide, that we will use it. If they're a regular weekly customer, we will actually store it for them. If they're not, we will send it back with their clean laundry. So it's a big part of just giving people what they want. They don't want you to do their laundry your way. They want you to do their laundry their way. and probably more sensitive to that for the higher end customers, clientele.
Mhm.
You know, pickup and delivery. You're charging a premium for those services. You don't get to dictate to them what they do and don't do. I mean, you think you do because you're the private business owner, but 5 years in, if you're doing 10,000 a month, maybe that's why. Because that's not what Some customers, of course, are okay with that, but most of them are not. And these aren't just Dave Menz's opinions, by the way. These are, this is based on many, many, many conversations across the industry. I don't think people want us dictating those things to them any more than they want us dictating to them the water level in our machines. Let's think about how hypersensitive they are to that. And if
Mhm.
we decided what's the right amount of water, which sometimes we do, they don't much. So I think that detergents, brands, things like that are even more hyper focused. So I think it's a really bad idea, is just my opinion. And I would love to compete with a store that did that.
Well, hey, man, I don't want to be that store then if you're competing with them. Man, there's so many questions we didn't get to. I mean, Halifax Laundry wants to know if they're crazy to build new. I mean, you want to say something real quick? We have like 1 minute. You want to
Yeah,
say
and
something?
I don't mind going over a second. What's the question? The
They're
last one?
trying to scale up and they can't find they've reached out to everybody to try to buy a laundromat.
Mhm.
Nobody's biting on it. So they want to know, are they crazy to build?
Oh, are they crazy to build? Oh man, that's a huge it depends question for sure. So sorry
Yeah.
to throw that out there to you at the end, but what I would tell you is just be careful not to overbuild your market. Maybe be patient. Maybe those people that aren't willing to sell right now will come around. One of the things my mentor and distributor taught me many years ago, which I do agree, is he told me that one of the hardest things on planet Earth to do is kill a laundromat. And man, is he right? Because if they have, I mean, they can be the most awful operation in the world, and the only fixed expense they got is rent. And
Mhm.
all they got to do is just be able to pay the rent. And if they got 40-year-old equipment, it's paid for. So what I would tell you is no, you're absolutely not crazy. And in the right environment, I mean, it could be a fantastic move for you. Let those other people fight over the crumbs in a market where the laws of supply and demand are tipped in your favor. No, absolutely not. There are people building new laundromats all over the country and just absolutely killing it like nobody's business. Build a modernized laundromat, but just do your homework. Make sure the
Yep.
laws of supply and demand are tilted in your favor. Sorry to give you a really quick, short answer, but that's actually a really big question, and it's based specifically on your what I call submarket. So your 5 to 10 mile radius around your store is what I refer to as your submarket. Doesn't even matter what's happened on the other side of town. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of people building new laundromats right now all over the country, and many of them are the top of the industry. Not because they built a brand new laundromat, but because their operations are up to that standard too. So,
Yeah. Do your
no, you're not
research.
crazy.
Yeah, do your research, and I would say get people on your side who know the business and who know what they're doing. Real
Absolutely.
quick, I mean, I think we have to end with this one. First of all, a couple of you had questions that were more kind of basics, how to evaluate a laundromat, that kind of stuff. Go to laundromatresource.com. I'm doing a live webinar tomorrow. I do one every single Thursday, and those webinars are very beginner focus, and tomorrow's how to buy your first laundromat. So sign up at the top of the
Nice.
page, laundromatresource.com. We'll talk about how to analyze all that stuff, how to value that kind of thing. So get your answer there. But I feel like we have to end with best advice to stay rich. Megan asked, what's your best? I mean, the Laundromat Millionaire's got to answer that question. How do you stay rich?
Best advice to stay rich?
Yeah.
Hmm. Keep your hands out of the cookie jar. Let your money make money for you.
There it is.
Nothing wrong with increasing your lifestyle. But what with the decisions that we have made financially that got us to where we are today, and we continue to make decisions this way, is if we were to do anything, let's call it a splurge in our home or our car or vacations or whatever. If we do any of those things, is it even debatable as to whether that's the best move for our business financially? If it's debatable, the answer is no. We're not there yet. So any splurges we make personally, financially, it can't even be debatable as to if a great opportunity that came up 3 months from now, and we said, oh, "Wish we hadn't bought that new house." Like we could take advantage of that great business opportunity, or buying that commercial building, or building that laundromat, or whatever. If any financial decision you make in your personal life is going to even questionably hinder that, then delay gratification. Last thing I'll tell you regarding that, go look up the marshmallow test on YouTube. Go look up the marshmallow test.
Ooh, that's a good teaser. All right. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you
Appreciate
guys.
it. And thanks for all the questions and all the comments. As always, definitely my favorite part of all these things is you guys interacting with each other and connecting with each other. I saw a couple people connecting even offline here on Facebook and elsewhere. So keep connecting, keep contributing, and keep growing and learning no matter where you're at in the process. You could be a veteran, you could be brand new. We should all be doing all of those things: teaching, learning, connecting with each other, and let's keep thriving. Let's do it together. So appreciate you guys, and
thank you so much.
We'll have information about the next one that's going to be on the Laundromat Millionaire, probably YouTube and probably Facebook page. So make sure you're on those. Check out the Laundromat Millionaire podcast. Go give him a boost if you haven't subscribed to that yet. If you haven't given him a rating and review yet, that'll really help him out and help him get out there. So go do that as a thank you for everything that he's given you in this Q&A and all the other stuff that he does. And make sure you're checking out his stuff, because he is trying to help you succeed in your business. So let him help you. So thanks, guys. And we'll catch you on the next thing. There's so much going on all over the place. So we'll see you at whatever the next thing you're at is, and cannot wait to see you at the next Q&A. Thanks, guys.
All right, guys. Take care. See you next time.